Once upon a time, there was a beautiful lake. But one day the waters of the lake began to boil, and steam came out from the cave at the end of the lake. And out of that cave came a creature with huge leather wings, scales on his back like iron, breath of fire. It was a dragon, and the dragon came out and roared, and everyone hid inside the castle, but the dragon came up to the castle and he roared, and so they got a sheep. And they pushed the sheep outside the castle, and the dragon went chomp. And he came back every day and went chomp, 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 until finally they ran out of sheep. Oh. And so they made a terrible choice. Everyone put their name in a pot, and they stirred the pot. And they stirred the pot, and whoever's name was chosen would be fed to the dragon. And they pulled out the name of the princess! And the king said, "No, not my daughter," but no one else wanted to go. And so they tied the princess to a rock near the lake. And the princess cried out,
"Won't somebody save this poor princess?"
But the waters of the lake began to boil, and steam came out of the cave at the end of the lake, and out of it came a creature with huge leather wings, scales on his back like iron, breath of fire. It was a dragon! And the dragon opened his mouth to chomp her in half when there was a sound over the hill that sounded like this: clop, 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 clop. Clop, 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 louder, clop, 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 clop. There at the top of the hill, riding on a white horse, was a brave and bold knight whose name was George. And George pointed at the dragon and said, "None shall harm the princess while I live." But the dragon just roared. And poor George, he didn't have anything to fight the dragon with. He's in a lot of trouble. What's that thing they have at their side that they pull out?
A squire!
A squire? No, a sword. A sword. He pulled out his sword. And what's that thing they have to protect themselves with?
A squire!
Not a squire. Squires are very flammable. No, it was a shield. It was a shield. And what's that big long thing they have that they throw?
Squire! What? You're trying to save me.
It was a spear. And he throwed at the dragon with the spear. Clop, 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 whammy through the spear. But the dragon's scales on his back were as hard as iron, and the spear broke, and the dragon knocked him from his horse. And he opened his mouth and he roared out fire, and poor George is going to get burned up, but he held out what he had left. What did he have left to protect himself with? It was a shield! And he held up the shield and it blocked the flames, but now the dragon was raising himself up. He was raising himself up and down, come down and squash George flat. And that's when George pulled out the only thing as he had left. He pulled out his sword. He pulled out his sword and he drove it in. He drove it into the soft underbelly of the dragon. He drove it right into the dragon's heart, and the dragon roared, splashed into the water, and was never seen again. And everyone came out and they said, "George, you did it! You defeated the dragon! You can marry the princess! You can become king!" And George said, "No, for I am on a quest, and I cannot rest until all the dragons of England have been slain." And he rode away. But some say that even today, if you look off into the distance when England rides into battle, you can see him riding a white horse, Saint George, the Dragon Slayer. Thank you very much.